Hello and welcome to another TV Central podcast. I'm Aaron Ryan. Nice to be with you again. Last week I was on the set of The Biggest Loser singles in Sydney and chatted with the contestants. Today I'm chatting with trainer Shannan Ponton about the new series. Shannan, thanks for your time.
How you going, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Look, it would be difficult to start a Biggest Loser interview without mentioning at least just one or two questions about the ratings for the current season, which are down on previous seasons. Now, Excess Baggage has debuted with a number which was lower than the first episode of Loser, and then its second episode just totally plummeted. Now, I know you're focused on the training aspect, but in general, what do you make of this initial lower ratings for Loser? Is the audience getting tired, or is it just an early start to the year, you think?
Well, I reckon we've got a pretty good cult following. The responses that I've had from the general public in regards to the start of Loser this year has been incredibly sort of positive. And as far as everybody on the street seems to be really into it, it seems to have really sort of got a grasp.
Yeah. Have the people involved in the show obviously will be hoping for a sort of rise in the ratings over the next couple of weeks, but with 9 showing Excess Baggage, do you think there's enough room for both?
Oh, absolutely. Unfortunately, we're one of the fattest, if not the fattest nation in the Western world, and there's obesity epidemic in Australia is out of control. 60% of our population are overweight, so there's more than enough room for two shows for people to get in there and start to learn how to change their lives.
Yeah. Well, let's get off the ratings and focus on the show. On my set visit last week, there is something that quite overwhelmed me when I was there. I'd always thought that this was a television show at its primary core, and the fact that these people were able to transform their lives was secondary to that. However, I was watching a training session with Commando involved, and at the end of the production crew finished filming and left, and I naturally thought that was the end of the session, but the training wasn't over. Commando said to them he didn't care if the cameras had stopped rolling and was still pushing them, and even after he left, the contestants were actually still pushing themselves and still going. So I kind of realised that this was way beyond a television show. This was something that drove each contestant to the core on a personal level. Is that a fair observation?
Yeah, you're on the money, Aaron. I'll tell you, the contestants do the volume of training by themselves, which means for most of them, somewhere between a 5:30 and a 6 o'clock start every morning. In the morning, most of them do about an hour. Then they have their breakfast, then they get set for the production side of the show. Then we come in and do the real sort of hardcore training that we do for cameras. The contestants eat, they stretch and recover, have their dinner, and then they've got to train again for at least an hour at night. So the discipline that it instills within the contestants to become self-motivated and to chase their own goals is incredible. And for most of them, it does last a lifetime.
Well, 7 seasons in for the show. Do you notice a difference in the contestants compared to the first seasons and now? I would just think at the beginning that it was kind of fresh and they didn't know what was going to happen, but now these contestants would be quite familiar with the format of The Biggest Loser. Do you notice a difference?
Yeah, I think they are definitely a little bit more up to date with the format of the show, but nothing can actually prepare you for what it's like until you're living at Camp Biggest Loser. You know, you can sit back and watch, and there's so many armchair critics that say, oh, if I was there, I'd try harder, or I would have done this. But it's not until you're there and you've got to get up every morning at 6 o'clock and you train for 3 hours a day, every day for 3 months, that you really learn what it's like. And I think with the intensity of the environment at Camp Biggest Loser, the contestants forget about the cameras in about the first 10 minutes.
Well, a couple of questions before we talk about the show again. You've been in the industry for at least 20 years. I'm wondering if anything surprises you anymore. I mean, a lot of people, when they see someone that's over 200 kilos, wonders how they got to that stage. I mean, do you still wonder that, or are you more understanding because you're familiar with their backstories?
It still amazes me how the contestants actually let themselves go mentally to get to that way physically. Now, the science of getting that big isn't that hard to understand. They eat too much, they don't move enough. That's physically how you get that big. The bit that makes my mind boggle still is at what point in your life do you become so low that you just give up? You become a victim to food, and the life, even with some contestants at a young age of 20, have the life squashed out of them, which which is just horrific. They basically get to that point where they're so obese that they just give up and they capitulate and they set themselves to a life of misery, basically.
Mm. In a bio of you, it states that you train the way you live your life with respect plus integrity, physical and mental discipline, as well as strength in the mind and body. Tell me what that actually means. I mean, I know what it means in writing, but I mean, what does that mean living it out?
Mate, that means for me, the respect thing comes first, and that's the most important thing, I believe. Respect is the most important virtue or value that you can hold in life, and I believe that everything else comes underneath that. If you respect someone, you're never going to lie to them, so honesty comes under that. If you respect someone, you can afford to love them freely. You should respect Mother Nature, respect other people's property. So that's the way I live my life. I respect other people, respect other people's property, respect Mother Nature.
Mm.
And the way I live my life with my training is the same as it is in the show, which is hard but fair.
Mm.
So I train hard every day. I work under the same ethic as well. And I believe if you keep a pure and open heart, at the end of the day, you'll be rewarded for your efforts.
Well, part of that ethic that you're talking about is I know that you also do charity work. Tell me more about what you do with in regards to charity.
Oh, mate, the charity work's just a blessing. I love it. I do a fair bit of work for the Children's Hospital at Westmead.
Yep.
I'm also an ambassador for Canteen, which is the kids with cancer. So I do the major fun runs around Australia for them each year, like the City to Surf in Sydney, the Bay to Breakers in Adelaide, the Bridge to Bay in Brisbane. So I run those as an ambassador. Plus, I also get the opportunity to go out and meet the kids face to face on their holiday camps and that sort of stuff. I'm also a proud ambassador of the McGrath Foundation. And really have found a passion there working with people affected by breast cancer in particular.
Well, if you're sort of fit, healthy, good-looking, disciplined, has integrity, does charity work, works on a successful television show, the question has to be asked: where's the weaknesses or the bad habits?
Yeah, I try not to have any weaknesses, and if I do, I'm honest enough with myself to be able to assess where it is and then try and work on it. My mind is strong in as far as training and that sort of jazz goes. My weakness for beer, I love a beer as much as the next bloke. And but I mean, you can sort of offset that by, I've got the old motto: if you play, you pay. So if I've had a couple too many beers one night, I'll be the bloke that's up first thing the next morning and running along Manly Beach with a hangover, occasionally pulling over to throw up, and then continuing on.
I notice your website talks about the My Biggest Loser Express Rapid Weight Loss Kit that you're involved in. Can you tell us more about that?
Sorry, mate, I missed that.
The on your website it talks about the Biggest Loser Express Rapid Weight Loss Kit that you're sort of doing through your website. Tell us more about that.
Mate, that's great. What I've done, there's been three sort of major projects that I've undertaken in this off-season. The first one was to finish writing my book, which is done now. That's called Hard Enough, and that's out. So that's a hard copy paper form of everything you need to transform your mind and your body. Starting with the psychology and beating fear of failure and breaking victim mentality, through to the science of eating properly, the science of training properly, and then finally the last lot of chapters is about keeping it up once you get there. The Express Rapid Weight Loss Kit is a 6 DVD set, so people that don't like reading can get the Rapid Weight Loss Kit, and there's all the lessons you need in there too about how to eat effectively, how to train effectively. There's menus and recipes plus a wall chart so you can chart your progress. And the third one is online personal training, which is probably the thing that I'm most excited about at the moment. With demands for me on Biggest Loser, my time's become incredibly precious, and I find it almost impossible to get out and do one-on-one personal training now. So what we've done is done my personal training philosophies online. So every day you get your training programs set specifically for your fitness level. You get your daily menu plan, weekly shopping lists, weekly recipes. But the most important thing I think in that system is that we we have weekly weigh-ins like we do on Biggest Loser, which helps keep the contestants, or helps keep my clients, answerable to themselves and honest. And I think the fact that they've got some form of knowing that there's a weigh-in coming, there's a benchmark, and it makes them accountable for their actions during the week. And the losses we've had on that are absolutely phenomenal. People living real lives, still working full-time, pulling 7.5 kilos in a week. It's quite amazing.
Look, I'm going to throw out an interesting question here, and I can feel all the overweight people are going to say shut up. But I'm going to ask, majorly overweight people have an obvious health issue with slim people seem to us not having that issue. Now, as someone myself that sits on between 55 and 65 kilos, one would think I was healthy. However, I can't run from here to the letterbox without wanting to pass out, and my diet involves eating excess amounts of sugar, which I'm now cutting down on. I've just been inspired quite recently to stop all of that. And I'm sure there's many people out there in the same situation. Is that just as much of a problem with someone that is overweight, and how much are you seeing of that out there?
Firstly, Aaron, blokes like you are bad for business, mate. So I'm glad there's not more of you. Mate, as I said before, the statistics don't lie. Unfortunately, 60% of our population, so the overriding majority, are overweight. Now, being overweight gives a synergy to bad health. The two go hand in hand. Being overweight, you can have high blood pressure, a propensity for type 2 diabetes. You're more likely to get all types of cancers, and sleep apnea, and all those sort of things that can lead to an early death. Unfortunately, there's a thing that you can be skinny and underweight, but still not quite healthy. And the way that you improve your health, regardless of how big or how small you are, is by eating well and starting to train. So I think it's incredibly important, no matter what size or shape you are, even if you're happy with the way you look, that you do some form of training and eat well to benefit your health.
Well, back to the show. The first elimination was a shock. Selena Brown, one of the largest competitors, gone. From speaking with her, what do you think she'll take away from the show, and do you see a belief in her to keep losing the weight when going home?
I think I'm like the rest of Australia, mate, and you saw on the show, there was no theatre in that. I was absolutely horrified that the Red Girls were given the opportunity not to eliminate someone. Not just to eliminate someone, but not to eliminate a 22-year-old deaf Aboriginal girl who never, ever was going to be a threat to anyone in that competition. They could have kept her there and they could have saved her. So I was really shattered when those contestants decided to vote Selena out. I think in that time she learnt that there is more substance in her character, that there is an ability to stand up for herself, and we saw that in the elimination, that she really was quite brave. And I think for her, that was the first time in her life that she'd stepped up. Unfortunately for Selena, the penny just hadn't dropped, and it cost her time at Camp Biggest Loser.
Last couple of questions. Tell us about the characters in the show. I mean, everything's starting to unfold now. I mean, Alex seems to be the one I'm looking at, being quite cheeky. Tell us about any of the personalities emerging.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can see already there's a hierarchy that's developed at Camp Biggest Loser already. You can see, I can see in the red team, Margie and Lydia in particular are really quite strong characters. They're both physically strong and they're also quite mentally strong. You can see Alex as a joker and cheeky. Unfortunately, in my team, I've got Hamish and Ryan, who have just been mollycoddled their entire lives. And for them, just getting out of their comfort zone is a major step in itself. So training every day for them is something brand new and different, and it makes life really hard for me as a trainer.
Well, filming's in advance, and I know you can't talk about too much about what lies ahead. Is there any hints that you can give us about what's coming up on The Biggest Loser if people tune in?
You put me on the spot, but there are two relationships that blossom. This entire series has been about giving the contestants the courage and the belief in themselves to find love. Now already at Camp Biggest Loser, we've had 2 couples that have hooked up. I won't tell you who they are because that'll ruin it. But one of the boys is from my team, and he was one of the contestants that I thought would be least likely to have the confidence to put himself out there. And I'm like a proud dad, mate. I sort of sit back and say, good on you, buddy. Well done. I didn't think you had that in you in the first day.
Oh, awesome. So there's a smell of love in the air coming up. Excellent. Finally, I'm sure there are many people out there inspired to change their lives through watching this program. If someone is sitting at home now and thinking, like, this is it, I need to do something now, I need to change my life, and I'm thinking about taking the next step, what advice would you have for them moving forward?
Mate, pretty simple. Take that step. Just move. Don't get hung up on details. Don't get hung up on what's the best or the easiest way out. Take responsibility for where you are in that moment. Even if you're 2 kilos over or 20 kilos over, it doesn't matter. If you're uncomfortable with where you are, make a couple of small changes in your life, make some sacrifices, and take those first steps into regaining your self-confidence, but more importantly, feeling healthy and comfortable in your own skin. And it's that easy.
Awesome. Shannan, the show is certainly going to offer some inspiration and some surprises, some love as well. So thanks for joining me here today.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks very much. And look out for the love blossoming.
Yeah. Shannan Ponton, trainer with The Biggest Loser singles, airing Monday to Thursday for 1 hour each night at 7 p.m. You can also be happy to know that a 30-minute episode will air Fridays at 7 p.m. from February the 17th on 10. You can always catch up with the show on 10's website, but to learn more about Shannan, you can log on to shannanponton.com.au. Now, his name's spelled Shannan, so shannanponton.com.au. And you can check that out. That's all from this podcast. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to the next one. Until then, I'm Aaron Ryan for tvcentral.com.au. See you then.